I'm about to get an HOA fine in 3, 2, 1. She screams. Open headers, nothing. Holy crap. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video of the Hemi swap. So in the last video, it kind of had to come to a halt because, well, we're in Texas and we lost power for 4 days. Luckily, the power is back on, meaning we can continue working on the Hemi. So we have a lot of stuff to do in this video. I've been knocking out a bunch of little stuff behind the camera. Got a new fresh layer of paint on the bumper up there and just some really small knickknacks here on the Hemi so we can continue progress. Now, I'm still waiting on a bunch of parts, but now is a good time to go ahead and tackle the transmission, the 8-speed wiring and install to go behind this Hemi. So we have a lot to do in this video. Hopefully parts start rolling in here shortly, but let's get started. In the last video, we took a look at how to mount this 8-speed transmission in our Jeep. Everything went pretty good. I decided to go ahead and test fit our transfer case and go ahead and measure for drive shafts, and I found out that there were a few issues. So I'll include a little picture of our front drive shaft clearance. Now, since I run 1350 drive shafts, that is a huge joint. It was actually hitting this part right here, so I took it all back off and just chopped the metal and the rubber right there, and it seemed to clear. Now, this bottom piece, it was very, very tight fit. So I went ahead and added some aluminum spacers in between the Ram mount and our Jeep mount just to raise it up a hair to give us a little more clearance. So with that done, we can now mount our transfer case. But there is one more issue. The Ram transfer case mounts, the holes in the transmission, are a little bit bigger than the studs in our Jeep transfer case. You could just go ahead and bolt it up, tighten it down and call it good, but there might be a little play. So let me show you what we're gonna do to fix that. I made a quick trip to the hardware store and got some steel spacers. Now these spacers are 1/2 inch to a 3/8 inside diameter. So, as you can tell, there's a lot less play in this compared to the original transmission. Now, the best way to do this would be to find a 7/16 outside diameter spacer with a 3/8 inside. However, 1/2 inch is the only size I could find. So what I did was drilled out a few of those holes on the 8-speed transmission, just do 3 or 4 of them to 1/2 inch so we can install a few of these inside of our transmission. These guys are just gonna take out some of that play and give us a tighter fit for our transfer case. So let's get this installed. So this plate right here is what we're getting rid of with these spacers. So the 3 or 4 holes that we drilled out, we're gonna insert these from the back. Now that we have the transfer case mounted, it's time to measure and order new drive shafts. Sadly, the rear is gonna have to be a little bit shorter and the front's gonna have to be a little bit longer just due to the difference in length of the transmission and engine combo. So if you already have aftermarket drive shafts with a lot of slip, you might be fine, but definitely double check it and make sure they're not gonna bottom out on you. Now the next step is moving on to the 8-speed wiring and shifter. So in the last video, I went over all of this stuff. 8-speed kit from Jeep Speed Shop, our automatic transmission shifter from the Dodge Challenger, and then the 8-speed module. So the first step in all of this is to get this base plate mounted. Now this is designed mostly for an automatic transmission Jeep. It actually bolts in right with the studs on your Jeep's little transmission floor plate, this guy right here. So we have to pull off our center console, which is actually pretty difficult. You have to undo the side mounts and then undo some of the lugs back here on our e-brake, so you can pull the e-brake high enough to remove that. But with that removed, we can now make the modifications needed to this. Now if you have an automatic, you can do everything inside the vehicle. If you have a 6-speed manual, we're gonna have to fill our old shifter hole in the floor. But first step is to remove all of this stuff for you 6-speed owners, so we can pull this like kind of substructure out of the Jeep and make all the necessary modifications to that floor plate. With this removed, we have to do a bunch of modifications to make the Jeep Speed Shop floor plate fit. Now this normally does ship bare steel, went ahead and painted it, but for us 6-speed owners, there's quite a few modifications to install this. Like I already mentioned, if you have an automatic, this thing's gonna bolt right on. So there's 4 holes, 2 at the top and 2 on the bottom, that are going to align with the studs on the automatic transmission. Starting with this bottom left corner would be right there, the one that's coming up through the floor. So it's gonna mount kind of right here. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to cut out a piece of steel, weld it onto this to cover it up, make some new studs up here, also remove this, and add a stud over here. Now, one of the items that was supposed to come in the mail was a pre-cut out piece for our 6-speed cutout. I was actually planning on having these already made for sale for some of you guys looking to do this swap. He is a subscriber of the channel and he offered to make some, and if it does turn out good, we'll have them available for sale. But in the meantime, it has not came in yet, so we are just going to make our own out of some sheet metal. So we're gonna go ahead and rip this tab off and start doing some fab work to make this panel work with our floor plate. All the modifications on the floor plate are done. As you can tell, there are quite a few. Not only did we have to weld in that circle, we had to weld in 2 new studs right here and then 1 on the back. I also had to cut out 2 spots right there just so this Jeep Speed Shop floor plate, these 2 back bolts were kind of hitting up there. I drilled them out just so this will sit a little more flush. Now with this being done, I went ahead and put a coat of Rust-Oleum rust converter on there because it was looking pretty rough. But that is all we have to do to this guy to make it fit. Now the next step is to get our new 15 to 18 Challenger shifter mounted onto the Jeep Speed Shop plate and then mount this onto here. And just like that, we now have the 8-speed shifter all set up. Now the next part is to put this all back in the Jeep, tighten down all the nuts, and then finish up by installing our new transmission control module. This is gonna sit, it's gonna kind of align with that top stud there, and then we're just gonna drill and put some self-tapping screws or studs in these 2 holes right there just to keep it secure. Now, there is one thing before we get this back in the Jeep. Hopefully you can see it, but whether you have a 6-speed or an automatic, there's a grommet right there. See that hole that I'm pointing at? You're gonna pop this grommet out because that's where we are gonna run the wires for the 8-speed through. So it's a lot easier to get access and pop that out if you can reach your hand under in that 6-speed hole and pop it out. But for you guys that already have the automatic transmission, you'll already have wires going through there, just rip them out of there, and that's where we're gonna run our new wires through. So let's get this piece installed in the Jeep. So the entire shifter assembly is installed in the Jeep. Now I know you couldn't see that last part, or pretty much the whole part, I just watched it. You pretty much put everything back in, tighten everything down, and then for the transmission module, you kind of place it in there and then just pre-drill holes and use some self-tapping screws to install the actual transmission computer. Now, this next part is where kind of the complex side of it begins. We have to take a look at the transmission wiring harness. It's really not that bad. Jeep Speed Shop already has a few videos going through this, telling you what's what, but I'll do a real quick highlight. First thing I want to point out is that there are 2 connectors that we are not using at all. So this little round one and this purple one, we are not going to use those at all. What we are going to use is everything over here. So let's go through one by one and just real quick talk about what they are. So this connector is what goes into the transmission. This connector right here, SFT, is going to go to our shifter. This guy right here looks like an OBD2 port. This is what, if we need to pull codes from the transmission, that's what you're going to hook a scan tool up to. So we're going to kind of make sure we leave that somewhere that's easily accessible. This guy right here is to plug into a laptop if we need to tune or make changes on the transmission later. This guy right here, this big block, is gonna plug right into our transmission control module or the computer. And we have these 3 wires, red, yellow, and black. We have our ground, we have our battery power, and then yellow is gonna be switched power. We're gonna have to extend these and run them up into the engine bay. And we're gonna get rid of these fuses here. We do not need those, so we're gonna cut the fuses and extend these wires as long as we need. Now over here, there's a bundle of wires. The only 2 we're gonna use is our reverse lamp and our brake input switch. So I'm gonna show you those connections later. The reverse is gonna tie into the CAN bus system, and this guy just goes right to our brake switch. Oh crap, there's 2 more wires I totally missed right here. So these 2 right here, we're gonna chop this connector off and hook these into the CAN bus system right near our wirings. But the next step is to get this installed in the Jeep. The one thing we do really need to do is make sure we separate this correctly. So this is where I just pulled off that grommet on the transmission tunnel. We're gonna have to run this guy through. Jeep Speed Shop was saying we have to remove this plastic connector here in order to fit it through. So to do that, there's 4 little tabs on the inside. Like there's one right there. We have to push all 4 at the same time and slide this big turny guy out of there. So we're gonna do that and start laying all this out, plugging in our shifter and plugging in our computer connector, and then start focusing on some of the wiring. This is pretty difficult trying to get all these with one person, so it's definitely more than a 2-hand job. There we go. So with that through and the grommet back on, we'd put our connector back on and plug it into the back of the transmission. But next, we're gonna go ahead and finish up everything in here. But next up, we have this plug, which simply goes right into our transmission computer. We're gonna grab this little guy, plug it into our shifter, right here on the back. As you can tell, there's a ton of wires here, so we're gonna have to find a way to consolidate them and keep it nice and neat under this. Otherwise, there's gonna be wires just poking out everywhere. We're gonna go ahead and grab the transmission code reader and the laptop connection and move those off to the side, because those we're gonna wanna have access to without pulling the center console. Our brake switch and reverse lights, this wire we're gonna route under here up to our under our dash. And then last, these 2 guys are what we're gonna have to connect to this wire loom right here. So we're gonna open up this wire loom and find the wires that we have to tap into. All right, I'm gonna try to make this section quick, but we are gonna find the white with black wire and the white with blue. They're gonna be wrapped up together. It's how the CAN bus wires are. We're gonna kind of unwrap them. So once again, white with a blue tracer and a white with a black tracer. Got them right here. Now on this plug, we have a white with black, but that's actually gonna go to our white with blue. And our white with red is gonna go to our white with black. So I'll say that again. We have our white and blue, white and black, and our white and red is gonna go to the white with black, and our white with black is going to go to the white with blue. I'll write that down in the video description so you guys don't mess it up. So we're gonna cut this connector off and just tap these wires into this. So we still want these going, we're just tapping into it. So let's go ahead and do that, make sure it's a really nice clean connection. Now I know this part of the video is not the most exciting, but we have to get through it. When it comes to wiring, a lot of people get scared of it, guys. There's really not too much to wire. So we got those 2 wires done. The next thing we're gonna focus on is tapping into our brake light switch. So we're gonna come down here and unplug our the connector that's on our brake pedal right there, and we're gonna tap into pin number 6. Luckily, they are numbered 1 on the left, 6 all the way on the right. So in my case, it is a white with brown wire, and we're gonna come over here to our brake lamp input and tap into that the same way that we just did there. we now have this one reverse lamp, the pink wire. We're gonna worry about that later. We're gonna have to route that into the engine bay. That is pretty much it. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have to extend the red and yellow wires, cut out the fuses, and I went ahead and extended those wires under through here, routing through a hole in the firewall going to the engine bay. Once again, we're gonna hook up those in a little bit. Now, for the ground wire, the black one, I went right here to this lug. It is not an actual like Jeep ground source, but I've used it in the past with good success. So the only 3 wires we still have to hook up are the red, yellow, and pink. The pink one is for the reverse lights. The red wire that we extended is gonna go directly to the battery, and the yellow wire is gonna tap into a like a run/start source. I have to pull up the schematics and find a good spot to tap into for that, but there should be a few for that. So we're gonna come back to that in a minute, but now with all of that done, we can kind of wrap up this wiring in here. It's gonna be a mess, but we can now put back in our center console and start moving on to other parts of this swap. So it looks like we just added one more thing to the list of stuff we have to do. So I went ahead and was putting on my center console, and I realized that, hey, the shifter is sitting way far back. So for an automatic console, you know, 07 to 10 JKs, it would fit in there, no issues. But if you have a manual, we are gonna have to cut out this back section so it's more oval like the auto, which also means for you 2011 and up guys, you are also gonna have to modify your center console. So, you know, what I could do is just buy a new auto center console and it would work, but I'm gonna have to modify it because I don't feel like spending extra 200 bucks on something that I can just cut up anyways. But I know the, you know, 11 and up interiors are a lot nicer. They're a lot more refined. Sadly, you are gonna have to cut it and kind of figure out a way to mount this shifter, make a custom little leather boot. It's one of the drawbacks to going with the 8-speed is that it's a little more work. It might not look visually the same. I mean, we have a freaking Dodge Challenger shifter in there, but it all works and the 8-speed is gonna be worth it in the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out this center console and just pretty much trim out all the way around that oval. So last night I went ahead and got the center console all put back together. With that little trimming right there, it fits perfectly, no issues. We're gonna have to kind of make a DIY shift boot cover. My manual transmission, I got one from Redline Goods a while ago. It's a leather one. I mean, luckily, let me turn a flashlight on. We still have the tabs, those two, man, lighting is here sucks. We still have these 2 little tabs so I can reuse the 6-speed cover just with a custom leather boot that'll wrap around here. So that's definitely for later. Now there's a few more wires we have to do, and that's what I was doing last night. I was trying to figure out where to put these wires. So the first, we're just gonna go over this real quick and kind of end the wiring segment of the swap. This is gonna be it. So the red wire that came off of the harness that we had to extend, don't worry, I mean, it's not red, but it's white. That red wire, we're gonna extend it over to our battery. So I already put that in a loom. Now the black wire was the ground, and you guys know that I mentioned that I put it right there. Well, I went ahead and switched it up, and there's a ground for the body inside right there. So I went ahead and put it there. Now the other 2 wires are reverse light, and then our yellow switched power. The yellow switched power needs to have power on key on and cranking. So pretty much run and start. So I pulled up the wiring schematic for the Jeep, and I found out that for mine, I mean, I'll include a picture of what you're looking for. Boom. And in my case, the M15 circuit operates on run/start. That is exactly what we need. Now, the 2 options to hook into that is either use a fuse tap going to that circuit, but then we'd have to run our circuit all the way over here. Or we can find out what color wire that is and tap into it on the inside of the Jeep. Now, so for my setup, run/start power is pink with a light green stripe. So right there, as you can tell, I went ahead and cut it. So we're gonna tap in our yellow power wire to that. As you can tell, this is not yellow, I had to extend it. And for the reverse lights, that was the pink wire coming out of there, went ahead and extended that. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can either tap in to the reverse lights that go to your reverse lights, and the trans power will just directly feed that. Or we can have the CAN bus system turn on the reverse lights as normal. If you want to go that route, you're gonna have to wire up a relay. Jeep Speed Shop has a video on that, so I will put his video in the video description so you guys can check that out. But once again, that would require it running all the way up here and tapping into our TIPM and adding a relay. Whereas this, it's gonna directly feed it. I actually got this idea tapping into here from a guy on Instagram, Adventures of Sarge. He also has a YouTube channel where he has a few of these videos on there. I didn't know until this morning. And I saw him do this. I'm like, well, shoot, let's give it a shot. It's a lot easier than adding a relay. So we're gonna go ahead and make both of these connections, and then that's really it. That's it for the wiring, guys. It's really not that hard, and I'll include a bunch of info in the video description, as well as other videos where you can watch, man, that is squeaky, where you guys can watch and figure out how to do it yourselves if for some reason this isn't enough for you. But with that being said, after we make those, 3 connections, we are done with the wiring, and the next step would be to put the battery and tip them back in. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute. Sadly, we can't reuse the Jeep battery tray just because the Hemi is so much wider. So we're gonna make that here in a minute, but first, let's get all of these wires hooked up. So hopefully today we can do a test fire. We have to modify our battery box, or the battery tray that came factory with the Jeep. So here it is. We removed this when we pulled the engine. We have our little TIPM mount right here. This is where the air box would sit, and then the factory Jeep battery would sit right in here, and we have that sandwich plate to hold it down. Now, as you can tell, this thing's extremely wide. We have our 3 mounting bolts here, but this entire section is just way too wide for the big Hemi sitting in there. So we have 2 options. Either make a completely new battery tray out of steel, buy a new one from someone like Jeep Speed Shop, or there's other, handful of aftermarket battery trays, or we can kind of reuse this one and kind of modify it to work with our situation. So what I have here is the Barnes 4-wheel drive kind of universal battery tray. This one is designed for the Odyssey. They also make one for the Optima, for those of you that like garbage batteries, but the Odyssey one is definitely more my style. So what we're gonna do is modify this one to work with a steel battery tray while still fitting in the engine bay with the Hemi. So what we're gonna do is pretty much chop along this line right here so we can still use the 3 mounting bolts, but chop this edge all the way off over to here. Then we're gonna place our new battery tray in here, and it turns out that it kind of fits perfectly. So I've went ahead and drilled 2 holes right there for this backside to mount through. And up here, we have a little stop so it won't move around. But we have to mount that backside. And to do that, I have 2 aluminum spacers, which conveniently are the same deck height as this. So we're gonna put these wherever they need to be, and that'll, hold the battery tray. And then we'll drill 2 holes in the respective locations and run through bolts like that. So that is how we are gonna get this to work and securely hold our battery. But first, let's go ahead and chop that entire side off. And just like that, our new battery tray is in place. As you can tell, we should have enough clearance, but we're about to test fit it. It's got a coat of steel on there, so hopefully we won't have any rust issues with this bad boy. Let's get this in the Jeep. My idea worked. Everything fits. It is very tight, but it does work. We just saved ourselves, about $200 right there by keeping a lot of this stuff. Now, it is really, really tight in here, so I should have trimmed some of that plastic back more. Easily can do that in the future. But with that being said, the battery is in, it's wired up. We still have a lot of other stuff to finish up on this swap before we can really run it, but I think we might be able to do a test fire soon. Just a really quick crank over. because I don't have the transmission lines ran yet, so there's gonna be a little fluid squirting out of there. The power steering pump's probably gonna squirt a little bit out the lines. That's one thing I didn't talk about, power steering, still working on that. But I reused the factory JK line that went to the pump over on the passenger side. It does thread in, but we're left with a lot of excess lines, so I'll probably figure out what to do about that. We could get new power steering lines made, and I am gonna add an aftermarket cooler to this because I need one anyways, plus the return is over here, and this hose definitely isn't long enough. So we still have a long list of stuff that we need to do to finish up the swap, but I think the next step, let's get the evap in and then hopefully test fire it. I need to find my fire extinguisher. Where is that? Just in case. There's probably a lot more things I should hook up before I do this, but we're about to do a test fire. Got the old handy fire extinguisher ready. We got the GoPro going. 10 bucks says that thing's gonna fall over. This is gonna be extremely loud. So, oh boy, here goes nothing. Can't run it for too long. Where are my keys? Here they are. So, all right, we'll do that again. Oh, that is awesome, look. It was a 6-speed, now we have park reverse neutral drive. So that's part of the new computer system from Jeep Speed Shop. We have this lit up, prime the fuel system one more time. I hear the pump running. Let's make sure we don't have no leaks dripping out of there. And check under the Jeep for any leaks, no leaks. I'm about to get an HOA fine in 3, 2, 1, real quick crank over. She fired. Oh man. Yep, power steering fluid everywhere. Any transmission? Oh crap. Any transmission fluid? No? All right. No fires. All right. Yeah, that's okay. Let's do it one more time. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was amazing. Holy crap. So you really can't pick it up how loud this is on the GoPro, but it is, she screams, open headers, nothing. And man, wow. You turn it on and you can feel the whole Jeep just like, let's go, baby. Oh my gosh. Wow. Holy crap. So that is a really good sign. She runs, nothing crazy. We didn't have any vacuum leaks. I mean, of course, that was definitely not enough testing to really get an idea of it, but we're gonna clean up this mess. And then at this point, there's nothing else I can do, guys. I'm waiting on a bunch of parts, Holy moly, as you guys can tell, it's really not that difficult to do this swap. Even the wiring, there's only a handful of wires that you need to connect. Whew. All right, guys, I'm gonna kind of clean up this mess, and I'll see you guys later, probably when more parts come in. Oh yeah, baby. So the rest of the parts needed for this swap finally came in. I have everything that I need to finish up this Hemi swap. Sadly, I realized how long this video already is. We covered a lot of information in this video, especially stuff like the wiring. It takes a long time to kind of go over. I think we have to call it for this video. I think that's probably gonna be it. Luckily, we probably only have one more video of like install stuff before the Hemi swap is done. As you guys can tell, it's going really, really well. Now, one thing I do want to mention, before you test fire your engine, because I know somebody is either gonna forget or tell me that I forgot, make sure you have oil in your engine and transmission before you fire it up, even just for a test fire. So I already had oil and everything in there. I know somebody's like, man, you never added oil to that thing. Well, I did. So, and for you guys doing this, that's one critical thing. Don't forget to add oil. And the 6.4 takes a special SRT oil, the 0W40. But as you guys can tell, we did a lot of stuff in this video, and I think it's been like 5 days since I filmed the rest of that, waiting on these parts. In the meantime, I've been over here doing small stuff like radiator hoses. Didn't really do anything, I just bought them and test fit them. But I have been kind of working on an intake setup. We'll talk all about that in the next video. So I will see you guys next week, where the plan is to cover all this stuff. The rest of this is all really, really easy. Don't have to do it step by step. We can just talk about what we're doing and hopefully get this Jeep and Hemi on the road. So I will see you guys next week. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and stay tuned for, hopefully the final episode of the Hemi swap. See you guys. And there's one last thing. I was able to get a 10% off discount for all of you guys with Jeep Speed Shop. So if you're planning to do this swap, all you have to do is give them a ring on the phone when you're ready to order. Say that you've been watching the JK Gear and Gadgets video swap series, or just say you've been watching the YouTube channel and you heard about the discount code there. So when you're ready to order, you call them up, you will get 10% off. That is an amazing deal, especially when it be, you know, because there's a lot of money here in the swap related parts. So whether you're buying the full kit for them or just, you know, bits and pieces, kind of like I am, you can save 10%. So I do want to go ahead and say this video and all this stuff is not sponsored by Jeep Speed Shop. I paid for it, but I was able to talk to them and get a discount for you guys. So you're welcome. Thanks, Ben. All right, guys. I'll see you later.